Guys, you're never gonna believe it. The damnedest thing happened the other day. So, my dad has a couple of nasty habits. One of these is that in years past he has been known to burn dry leaves without assistance or supervision. He also has a tendency in election years to vote for conservative candidates and policies. And what I need you to understand is that these are functionally the same thing, except that one is on a property level and the other one is national. Once per year, for a couple of years, I have looked out the window or opened the door to let the cat out and found smoke wafting through the air. And when that happens, I will just look over at where it's coming from and discover that there's dead leaves burning on rocks, on the gravel of the driveway or something. Now, this tendency of his, I have always regarded as foreshadowing, especially given that I have advised him against doing it, and he dismissed my concerns. Well, yesterday, the foreshadowing paid off, because a little bit after noon or so, I think, if I remember correctly, I went out into the kitchen to get coffee, and I looked out the window, and there was smoke wafting through the air. And my initial thought was, oh great, I can't wait for him to dismiss my concerns again. And I looked at it a little more closely, and I thought, that's a little bit close. But it was more or less in the direction of the pasture, and considering his decision-making track record in the past, I didn't think it would be too horribly odd if he just decided that right under the trees by its edge was a good place to light it. I assumed that, like in the past, his high-risk decisions would go without serious consequence, and he would remain unamenable to advice. So, even though there was smoke in the air, and it's very dry this year, and I could see that the fire was closer than usual, I at first thought that there was no point in doing anything about it. The cat didn't want to go outside the first time, so I closed the door and went for my coffee, and then he wanted to go out again, and this time he actually went out, and I thought there's more smoke than there should be. So I went and asked my mom if she thought it was a little closer than usual. And she opened the blinds and looked outside, and she says, I think you're right. So I grabbed a pitcher of water, and we both went outside. Lo and behold, about half the pasture and a huge swathe of the woods had a low wave of fire creeping through them. And it had spread also up to the carport and toward the house. That last one, however, was just a tiny little tendril, and I stomped it right out. The carport, however, had the tractor in it, and the lawnmower in it, and a huge old stack of, lumber and old furniture pieces for some reason. And the tent trailer was also right next to it. The lawnmower was partially on fire, and I threw my water on that and stomped on it until that part went out. Strangely enough, the lawnmower wound up being fine. We tried to move the tractor out, it wouldn't budge. I'll skip over a lot of running around and messing with the hose and buckets and stuff. Basically, it just was not a fun time, and it very easily could have killed one or more of us. I got a little bit of smoke in my lungs. Everybody's okay, the cat is fine, even property damage was minimal. But his decision-making process still led to this disaster. And as I said at the beginning, that is exactly the same decision-making process that he applies when voting. This is an election year for not just America, but for a lot of countries. So wherever you will be voting, or deciding not to vote, I want to ask you, how could this have been prevented? I mean, it was prevented from burning the house down and setting the entire forest on fire because the fire department showed up and they put it out. But there is a burn ban in effect here that he did not check for. This from the guy who keeps a can of gasoline by the tractor and lawnmower and decides to burn leaves without assistance or supervision, and also votes Republican. Now, since what happened yesterday, he has acknowledged that probably solo burning should not happen in the future. Hopefully he finds a better place to keep his gas cans too, because if that had caught, it would have been even harder to put out. could have done a lot more damage. And theoretically, if he ever does want to burn something again, he should hopefully check to see whether there's a ban in effect or not. But about that other foreshadowing, the fact that Donald Trump is still on most of our ballots for some reason, and the fact that fascism is rising all over the place in Europe and vulcanizing in China and all over the place. The fact that it's practically unchallenged in Russia and in Turkey and Hungary, and Israel is able to hold up the democratic processes and safety precautions of basically the entire world. What do we do about that? Well, the obvious answer is vote, because fascists above all else love it when people don't vote. But what about the reason why people don't vote? That's basically liberals, right? The reason why Trump won in 2016 is because he was up against Hillary Clinton, and he almost won in 2020 against Joe Biden. And Joe's track record is worse now than it was then. It's difficult to imagine somebody bungling foreign policy as badly as he has with Israel, unless the person you're imagining is Donald Trump. And that's something I've been thinking about a lot lately. Liberals like having fascists around, because it means they can be as incompetent, stupid, greedy, and frankly evil as they want to, and we still have no choice but to vote for them. That's kind of Biden's whole thing. Don't compare me to the almighty, compare me to the alternative. It is sick that he's right, but he is. And the reason why he's right is not because of the fascists. He's right because of the liberals. They are the lesser of two evils. And for some reason, even though they lost in 2016, they still think that makes them bulletproof. It's our lives they're playing with. The reason why fascists get votes is because of liberals, and the reason why liberals get votes is because of fascists. Each of them gives the other carte blanche to do whatever they want. That is despicable. But the nuance I need you to realize is that it is not a reason to vote conservative. You are not going to break the system by voting for the worse of two evils. No matter how angry the lesser makes you, the worse is not an answer. We are going to be stuck here in America with the DMC and with its equivalent in other countries until we get rid of the fascists. There can be no room for anti-electoralism. You show up, you vote. If you are so blessed as to get a primary, you vote in the primary. Because sometimes, in a primary election, there are actually good options on the ballot instead of just the lesser evil. But whether you get one or not, freedom and humanity are compulsory. And if you think that's a problem, you are the problem. The shit will hit the fan in or by 2025, probably as a direct result of how these elections turn out, however they do. You will fight fascism on every battlefield, beginning with the ballot box and ending in the trenches, or we will die as a species. And yes, that does mean lesser evilism, until we get rid of them. Vote them out, or they will come for you with guns. Move the gas away from the tractor and then stage an intervention. You don't get a second life, we don't have an Earth 2. We can't stop them from lighting the fire, but we can stop it from destroying us. Above all, do not bring more metaphorical gasoline to the scene. That's like washing your hands after you use the bathroom.